devils. Yeah, that's what Paul says in another place. So, and unfortunately, that's what we're seeing today. Most people today are not putting up with sound doctrine. Those days are here. Paul prophesied about them, but they're here now. So, all the more we need to get into the Word and make sure we're rightly dividing it with the help of the Holy Spirit. Only way we can. And King Agrippa was almost persuaded to be a Christian. Verse 29. And Paul said, I would to God that not only thou, but also all that hear me this day were both almost and altogether such as I am, except these bonds. Almost and altogether such as I am. Because Agrippa was almost persuaded. I love how Paul says that. It's so cool. All right. Verse 30. And when he had thus spoken, the king rose up, and the governor, and Bernice, and they that sat with him. And when they were gone aside, they talked between themselves, saying, This man doeth nothing worthy of death or bonds. They couldn't think of anything either while he was even in prison, much less death. 32. Then said Agrippa unto Festus, This man might have been set at liberty if he had not appealed unto Caesar. But since he had appealed unto Caesar, now he's got to go to Caesar. It must have been the Roman law. So, anyways, all right, let's continue on to 27. Verse 1. And when it was determined that we should sail into Italy. So now it's determined. All right, well, we have no choice. He appealed unto Caesar. He's got to go. We don't know what to write, but he's got to go. So they determined to send him to Rome, Italy, to see Caesar Augustus. Okay, and when it was determined that we should sail into Italy, Rome, they delivered Paul and certain other prisoners unto one named Julius, a centurion of Augustus' band. And entering into a ship of Adramyttium, we launched, meaning to sail by the coasts of Asia. One Aristarchus, a Macedonian of Thessalonica, being with us. 3. And the next day we touched at Sidon, and Julius courteously entreated Paul and gave him liberty to go unto his friends to refresh himself. So this is quite a journey. Doesn't say how long it took, but that's like halfway to Rome, Italy already when they're going by Asia, because that's on the west coast of Turkey today, and then they went up to Macedonia, which is still Macedonia today, which is right by Thessalonica. So they're already there. So now I think they're going to have to sail from there down around like Corinth and Acacia, which is Greece today, and then they're going to have to go up. I don't have my map with me. Didn't get a chance to look at this. I didn't think we were going to get this far. So, but anyways, basically, you can look on a map and you can see it. You could probably Google Paul's route to Rome from Jerusalem, and it'll show you as well. But anyways, that's what they're doing. But they're going to have some problems along the way. We're going to see here. Big storm comes up. Anyways, so he gets to refresh himself with his friends, converts that he had converted in his 3 missionary journeys there to Macedonia and Thessalonica. Verse 4, and when we had launched from thence, we sailed under Cyprus because the winds were contrary. Under Cyprus. That's the island of Cyprus. So maybe it means south of Cyprus, trying to get better winds to get up and around. Because the winds were contrary. And when we had sailed over the sea of Cilicia and Pamphylia, we came to Myra, a city of Lycia. Now, yeah, it doesn't seem correct, but anyways, that's what it says. And there the centurion found a ship of Alexandria sailing into Italy. Alexandria, Egypt, is passing by. It's on its way to Italy. Probably a big grain ship. So sorry, excuse me. And he put us therein. So now they're jumping on a different ship. And when we had sailed slowly many days, and scarce were come over against Sidus, the wind not suffering us, we sailed under Crete over against Salmone. So it's just showing their route, and they're having great difficulty. The wind is contrary to them again and again. Verse 8. And hardly passing it, came unto a place which is called the Fair Havens, nigh whereunto was the city of Lycia. Now, when much time was spent, and when sailing was now dangerous, because the fast was now already past. I'm not sure what fast is talking about, but winter time is coming in, and it's a lot worse weather in the winter, in this region at least. And they usually don't sail in the winter, so they winter for a few months during the winter time. They stop and they don't sail because it's too dangerous. But they're going to decide to try it anyways. But they should have stayed there. Now, when much time was spent, and when sailing was now dangerous, because the fast was now already past, Paul admonished them and said unto them, Sirs, I perceive that this voyage will be with hurt and much damage, not only of the lading and ship, but also of our lives. So sorry, excuse me. He says, Paul's thinking, it's not going to be good if we continue. We should stop here. Verse 11, Nevertheless, the centurion believed the master and the owner of the ship more than those which were spoken by Paul. Not a good choice, but the centurion, he's just a secular man, he's a Roman. He believes the owner of the ship and the master of the ship more than he believes Paul, so he listens to them, and they go on. Verse 12, and because the haven was not commodious to winter in, so it wasn't the best place there to winter, that's the other reason why they decided to go on. The more part advised to depart thence also. So more of the people on the ship advised the centurion, we should go on as well. If by any means they might attain to Phoenice, and there to winter. So they were just trying to get to Phoenice to winter. Okay? They were going to still winter, but they didn't want to stay in Fair Havens. They wanted to go to Phoenice, which is an haven of Crete, and lieth toward the southwest and northwest. So it's more on the southwest and northwest. So it's a little more protected from the direction of the main winds that happen there, it looks like. And when the south wind blew softly, supposing that they had obtained their purpose, loosing thence, they sailed close by Crete. But not long after there arose against it a tempestuous wind called Euroclydon. You don't want to get caught in one of those, but they did, unfortunately. And it beat upon them. It rose on them. When the ship was caught and could not bear up into the wind, we let her drive. So it was so bad, this tempestuous wind, that's not an easy word to say, called Euroclydon, came down. The ship was caught in it, and they could not bear up into it. and they had no choice but just to let it ride with the wind. We let her drive. And running under a certain island, which is called Clauda, we had much work to come by the boat. The I'm guessing to bring the lifeboat up. I'm guessing that's what they're talking about. We had much work to come by the boat, which when they had taken up, they used helps undergirding the ship. That means they ran ropes around the ship, big thick ropes, a bunch of them, to try to give it more strength, I'm guessing. Undergirding the ship, fearing lest they should fall into the quicksands, straight sail. And so were driven. So there's some quicksands that they were headed towards, and they were afraid if they tried to cut the wind, they were going to end up in those quicksands. So they straight sailed, and so were driven. And we being exceedingly tossed with the tempest, the next day they lightened the ship. I mean, they're starting to fear for their lives already. So they're starting to throw stuff over to lighten the ship so it can take the big waves better. And the third day we were cast out with our own hands the tackling of the ship. Not sure exactly what the tackling is, but they're still trying to loosen the weight. They're starting to fear for their life. 20. And when neither sun nor stars in many days appeared, and no small tempest lay on us, all hope that we should be saved was then taken away. Now they think they're going to die for sure. All hope that they're going to be saved was taken away. 21. But after long abstinence, that means they were fasting. All of them were fasting. Like everybody on the ship was fasting. So this must have been a common practice from even non-believers, that they would fast and hopefully get favor from their gods. I'm guessing. So, but after long abstinence, Paul stood forth in the midst of them and said, Sirs, ye should have hearkened unto me. Yeah, they should have listened to Paul. They should have hearkened unto me and not have loosed from Crete, and to have gained this harm and loss. 22. And now I exhort you to be of good cheer, for there shall be no loss of any man's life among you, but of the ship. The ship's going to be lost, but nobody else. 23. For there stood by me this night the angel of God, whose I am and whom I serve, saying, Fear not, Paul, thou must be brought before Caesar. And lo, God hath given thee all them that sail with thee. Everybody that's sailing with you. You know how many people are on this ship? This is a big ship. 268, I think. Something like that. A lot of people on this ship. Big ship. 25. Wherefore, sirs, be of good cheer, for I believe God, that it shall be even as it was told me. I believe God, and he says nobody's going to die. That's an amazing statement. Howbeit, we must be cast upon a certain island. I think it was Malta. We're going to see. Anyways, verse 27. But when the 14th night was come, as we were driven up and down the Adria, that's the sea, about midnight, the shipmen deemed that they drew near to some country, and sounded and found it 20 fathoms. Okay, they knock on the bottom of the ship and they listen to how long the echo takes to get back to them. They must have some type of listening device on the bottom of the ship. And they can tell how deep it is by banging really loud, and then they count how long it is, I'm guessing, until they hear the sound again. And that'll tell how long the echo took to get back to them. So it tells how deep the water is. And it was considered 20 fathoms at this first time. And when they had gone a little further, they sounded again and found it 15 fathoms. So it was getting shallower. So they're thinking, whoa, we're about to hit some land of some kind. 29. Then, fearing lest we should have fallen upon rocks, they cast 4 anchors out of the stern and wished for the day, because it's pitch dark out, okay? And if they end up going overboard in the nighttime, you know, how can they see where the land is to even know where to swim toward, right? Or to get in their boat to see where to paddle toward, so they could be lost at sea. And so they prayed for night, right? Wished for night, they said. Wished for the day. I'm sorry, wished for the day. They were in the middle of the night when this happened. And anyways, 30. And as the shipmen were about to flee out of the ship, so some of the shipmen, the people who ran the ship, they're about to flee when they had let down the boat into the sea under color and under pretense. They were acting like they were going to do something else, to try to help the ship, under color as though they would have cast anchors out of the foreship. They were acting like they were going to go get some anchors out of the foreship, so they're going to get in the little boat, the lifeboat. But really what they were going to do was flee. And Paul knew it. And Paul said to the centurion and to the soldiers, "Except these abide in the ship, ye cannot be saved." If not everybody stays in this ship, nobody's going to be saved. That's really amazing, isn't it? Everybody had to stay on the ship for everybody to be saved. If somebody takes off, then Paul's saying, then you can't be saved. What is that a foreshadow of? That almost seems like a really clear picture of Jesus is the ship, and if you don't stay with Jesus, nobody's going to be saved. I don't know. Could be. Anyways, then the soldiers cut off the ropes of the boat and let her fall off. They said, okay, if that's the case, we're getting rid of the ship. They're starting to listen to Paul, right? Verse 33, and while the day was coming on, Paul besought them all to take meat, saying, they need to eat something. They had been fasting for days, but now they're going to have to swim because this boat's going to get crashed. It's going to get destroyed on the rocks, and they're going to have to swim to shore. And Paul knows this, and he says, you guys have been fasting for 14 days, 2 weeks. If you don't eat something, you're probably going to drown. So you need to eat something so you have enough strength to swim to shore. And while the day was coming on and was starting to get light, Paul besought them all to take meat, saying, this day is the 14th day that ye have tarried and continued fasting, having taken nothing. They hadn't eaten nothing for 2 whole weeks because everybody was fasting. They were scared for their life. They were thinking that maybe fasting, maybe their God would hear them and they would be saved, right? Whatever God they were calling on. Wherefore I pray you, take some meat, for this is for your health. For there shall not an hair fall from the head of any of you. Nobody's going to die here if you listen to me. And when he had thus spoken, he took bread and gave thanks to God in presence of them all. And when he had broken it, he began to eat. Then were they all of good cheer, and they also took some meat. So everybody ate. That was very vital for their survival because they were going to have to swim to shore. The ship is going to get stuck on the rocks out a little ways from the shore. Anyways, 37. And we were in all in the ship 216 souls. 200, 60, that's 60, and 16 souls, that's 76. So yeah, I was wrong. 276 souls. That's a lot of people. 276 people are on this ship. This is a big ship. It's a big grain ship. They already had thrown out most of the grain out because they had lightened it to try to survive the wind and the waves. And when they had eaten enough, they lightened the ship and cast out the wheat into the ship. They even cast out the rest of it. Verse 39. And when it was day, they knew not the land, but they discovered a certain creek with a shore. They saw a certain creek with a shore, it says, into the which they were minded, if it were possible, to thrust in the ship. So they were going to try and drive this ship into this area where a creek came down, and it would probably be deeper there, right? because the creek erodes the dirt out there. So they're going to try to go in that area and try to get as close to the shore as they can, because it's still a huge storm, okay? So they're heading for it. If it were possible to thrust in the ship, they're going to thrust it in as close to shore as they can and then hopefully be able to swim to shore. And when they had taken up the anchors, they committed themselves unto the sea. It sounds like they cut the anchors loose, though. And actually, you can read a documentary where people have found those anchors in the sea. 4 of them, just like they said. And when they had taken up the anchors, they committed themselves unto the sea, and loosed the rudder bands, and hoisted up the mainsail to the wind, and made toward shore. So they just put up the big sail. They're heading just straight into the shore. They're getting off this ship because they didn't. Yeah. Anyways, they didn't even have a lot of the stuff to run the ship anymore. They had thrown most things overboard to lighten the ship. Verse 41, and falling into a place where 2 seas met. This is really significant. This is how they found this place. You can tell the color of the water or the waves, the way they're meeting together. It shows that it's 2 different seas meeting together in one place. And they actually found this place. And falling into a place where 2 seas met, they ran the ship aground, and the forepart stuck fast and remained unmovable, but the hinder part was broken with the violence of the waves. So big waves are crashing into it. It's breaking up the ship. And the soldiers' counsel was to kill the prisoners, lest any of them should swim out and escape. Okay, because if these prisoners escape, there's a good chance that the soldiers and this centurion is going to be crucified by the Romans, because that's how they made sure no prisoners ever escaped. They threatened they're escaping with your life. If you lose them, you lose your life, basically. So that's why the soldiers were terrified and they thought, we better just kill the prisoners now, otherwise we might be crucified. So that's why they were afraid and thought we should do that. So, and the soldiers' counsel was to kill the prisoners, lest any of them should swim out and escape. But the centurion, willing to save Paul, kept them from their purpose. The centurion had more power than soldiers. He said, no, we're not going to do that. I know Paul's a just man, or at least he believed that. He wanted to save Paul, so he didn't allow them to do that. Kept them from their purpose and commanded that they which could swim should cast themselves first into the sea and get to land, and the rest, some on boards and some on broken pieces of the ship. And so it came to pass that they escaped, all safe to land. Every one of them. Not one person died, just like Paul prophesied, because God told him that. And I think we're going to cut it short today a little bit and stop there. But that's an amazing ending there. And we have 1 chapter left for tomorrow. And then we're going to continue into the Gospel of John. Actually, we got 8 minutes. Maybe we could finish. There's quite a bit in chapter 28, though. Well, let's just see how far we get. We got 8 minutes left. Let's see. Acts 28, verse 1. And when they were escaped, then they knew that the island was called Melita. Now, let me look at that real quick here, because I think it was Malta. Now, maybe that's the name of the island in the Mediterranean, lying between Africa and Sicily. Now called Malta, yeah. So the island that's now called Malta at that time was called Melita, or Melite, or something like that. So yeah, they're on the island of Malta. You can look on the map and see where that is. And the barbarous people, that doesn't mean they were wicked people. They're just, that just means they were rude. They had a rude speech. Maybe one who speaks a foreign, strange language. Okay. And the barbarous people showed us no little kindness, for they kindled a fire and received us everyone because of the present rain and because of the cold. So it was cold and raining, and these people were very friendly on this island of Malta, and they made a fire for them. And when Paul had gathered a bundle of sticks and laid them on the fire, there came a viper out of the heat and fastened on his hand. And when the barbarians saw the venomous beast hung on his hand, they said among themselves, "No doubt this man is a murderer, whom though he hath escaped the sea, yet vengeance suffereth not to live." So they're saying, so he must be a murderer or something because he escaped the sea, but vengeance suffereth not. So they believed in like karma or reaping what you sow. Vengeance suffer him not to live. So even though he escaped the sea, he's going to get what he deserved. He must be a murderer. That must be why the snake is biting him. And they knew what kind of snake this was, so they thought he's soon going to die. But he didn't. Verse 5, and he shook off the beast into the fire and felt no harm. Howbeit, they looked when he should have swollen or have fallen down dead suddenly. But after they had looked a great while and saw no harm come to him, they changed their minds and said that he was a god. It's like, we've never seen anybody get bit by that kind of snake and live. Every time they've gotten bit by that kind of snake, they've died or swollen up and died. So he must be a god. So quickly they changed their mind, huh? But Paul was being protected by the Holy Spirit, by God, right? And verse 7, in the same quarters were possessions of the chief man of the island, whose name was Publius, who received us and lodged us 3 days courteously. So they're staying with the chief man now because Paul's considered a god, right? So the chief man of the island, Publius, he says, why don't you come stay with me? And he lodged them courteously 3 days. And it came to pass that the father of Publius lay sick of a fever and of a bloody flux, to which I don't know what it is. It's some kind of disease. To whom Paul entered in and prayed and laid his hands on him and healed him. So now Paul's healing this guy, showing more power of the Holy Spirit, this guy's father. So when this was done, others also which had diseases in the island came and were healed. So now Paul's having healing ministries going on. Everybody's coming and getting healed. Now, you can imagine the gospel is going forth pretty rapidly at this time because you're seeing all these healings. Paul's prophesying and it's being fulfilled. Not one person died. You can imagine how many people, even on the ship, are being saved because they're believing these prophecies that Paul prophesied. Not one of you is going to lose their life, and it happens. Now all these people are getting healed. You can imagine revivals breaking out, huh? On the island of Malta. Verse 10, who also honored us with many honors, and when we departed, they laded us with such things as were necessary. So they're giving Paul everything he needs now. Isn't this amazing? And after 3 months, they were there 3 months. And sounds like they had it pretty good for those 3 months. And after 3 months, we departed in a ship of Alexandria again, which had wintered in the island, whose sign was Castor and Pollux. These are different gods they put on the front of their ships. They think they'll protect them, but obviously they don't always. So there was a ship that was wintering there. This was the time that ships wintered for 3 months, he said. And so now they're getting on this ship, and they're going to continue to Rome. And landing at Syracuse, we tarried there 3 days, and from thence we fetched a compass. So obviously they didn't have a compass. Now maybe they're going to get a compass and they're going to go by land. I don't know. And from thence we fetched a compass and came to Rhegium. Sounds like they're on land now. And after 1 day, the south, no, they're still in a ship. Sorry. So they must be in a smaller boat or something. I don't know. Well, I don't know why that other ship wouldn't have had a compass. That doesn't make any sense to me. And from thence we fetched a compass and came to Rhegium. And after one day the south wind blew, and we came the next day to Petulia, something like that, where we found brethren and were desired to tarry with them 7 days. So he found some of his converts that he had converted on his first 3 missionary journeys, and they stayed with them. How many days? 7 days. So they hung out with them for 7 days. And so we went toward Rome. And from thence, when the brethren heard of us, they came to meet us. So the brethren in Rome now, there are brethren in Rome that Paul knows. And now they're coming to meet him. Came to meet us as far as Appia, Forum, and the 3 taverns, whom when Paul saw, he thanked God and took courage. Yeah, I'm going to make it to Rome, and I got my brothers here with me. And when we came to Rome, the centurion delivered the prisoners to the captain of the guard, but Paul was suffered to dwell by himself with a soldier that kept him. So Paul gets his own rented house and just a soldier to guard him as he's there, waiting for his trial. And it came to pass that after 3 days, Paul called the chief of the Jews. So now he's gonna start witnessing to the Jews right away. So he's calling the chief of the Jews there together. And when they were come together, he said unto them, Men and brethren, though I have committed nothing against the people or customs of our fathers, yet was I delivered prisoner from Jerusalem into the hands of the Romans, who when they had examined me, found would have let me go. The Romans would have let me go because there was no case of death in me. But when the Jews spake against it, I was constrained to appeal unto Caesar, not that I had aught to accuse my nation of. For this cause, therefore, have I called for you, to see you, and to speak with you, because that for the hope of Israel I am bound with this chain. So we're going to leave it there. We're going to find out tomorrow what happens to Paul in Rome. All right, guys, God bless you. Keep fighting the good fight of faith. It's our only hope to have faith in God. That is how we are justified. The just shall live by faith. That's how you're going to live, is by faith. So faith comes by hearing, hearing by the word of God. Come back. We're going to read some more tomorrow. God bless you. Till tomorrow, God willing, we'll continue. Bye-bye.